Hello, how are you today?
$200. That's all it was. $200. The price of a debt, the price of a human life, the price of one man's journey from a hot Alabama night in 1993 to a cold execution chamber 32 years later. But this story isn't just about money, it's about fire, about how 4 men decided that burning another man alive would settle a score, and about one of them, Anthony Todd Boyd, who after 3 decades on death row, finally met the state's new form of justice: a mask, a tank of nitrogen, and silence. 50 seconds in, and you already know, this isn't your average murder case. Because this one ends not with a needle, but with gas. The second time in US history that Alabama has used nitrogen hypoxia to take a life. Welcome to the execution of Anthony Todd Boyd, and the story of how revenge, fear, and arrogance turned a $200 debt into one of the most brutal murders Alabama has ever seen. It began in the summer of 1993 in Talladega County, Alabama. Gregory Huguley, 27 years old, owed a group of men money for cocaine, $200, that's it. But debt, when mixed with pride, becomes gasoline. On August 8th, 1993, Huguley was abducted by Anthony Todd Boyd and 3 accomplices. They drove him to a deserted baseball field at night, tied him to a bench, doused him in gasoline, and set him on fire while he was still alive. Witnesses said his screams could be heard echoing beyond the trees. Within minutes, there was nothing left but flames, laughter, and smoke curling into a southern sky. It was called a killing meant to send a message. Prosecutors later said Boyd was the ringleader, the man who gave the order to light the match. A Talladega County jury convicted him of capital murder during a kidnapping and by a 10-2 vote, recommended death. The judge agreed. Boyd's lawyers argued he wasn't the one who started the fire, that he was present, but not the killer. But the jury didn't believe it. They saw the cruelty as shared, the guilt as collective. And for decades, Alabama held him on death row as one appeal after another fell away. The case might have faded into the grey pages of history, except for one twist: the method of execution. Alabama had struggled for years with lethal injection drugs, court challenges, and failed attempts. In 2024, the state introduced a new method, nitrogen hypoxia, where the inmate breathes only nitrogen gas until the brain shuts down from lack of oxygen. Human rights groups called it experimental. The state called it humane. Boyd would be its second subject. In the days before his execution, he met with his family for the last time. He was 55 now, far from the hot-headed man he'd been in 93. Reporters said he showed little emotion, no last-minute appeals, no final words to the governor, just quiet acceptance or exhaustion. On October the 23rd, 2025, at Holman Correctional Facility, the chamber was prepared, a mask sealed over his face. Witnesses stood behind glass. At 6 p.m., the gas began to flow. Within seconds, his body stiffened. Within minutes, he stopped breathing. At 6:13 p.m., Anthony Todd Boyd was pronounced dead. Outside, the sun dipped over the prison yard as reporters typed headlines that would travel around the world. Alabama executes man convicted of burning victim alive using nitrogen gas. Inside the victims' families' hearts, the news didn't bring celebration, only stillness. Gregory Huguley's relatives said they'd lived with the echo of his screams for 32 years. Now, maybe, the echo would fade. But for others watching, another question burned. When a state kills a killer with gas, are we ending violence or repeating it? Is a breathless death ever truly humane? Anthony Todd Boyd's name will fade soon, filed under completed, but Gregory Huguley's name, the man who died for $200, remains a scar on Alabama's conscience. A story of how fast small debts can turn into infernos, and how long it takes for justice to catch up with fire. Because sometimes the worst crimes don't come from monsters. They come from ordinary people who believe anger makes them powerful. And in Alabama's death chamber, 32 years later, that anger finally ran out of air.